I've got something else that's very interesting regarding the vibration matching, regarding matching our vibrations. I hate to go back to this incident, but of course, the 9/11 incident, my brother was in one of the buildings, and as it happened, I guess because I still have a hard time understanding how so many people could be a vibrational match for that particular experience, but what I know my brother, and he was not a vibrational match for that entire experience, and as it happened, he was home sick that day. So that was just absolutely perplexing and mesmerizing, and yet so it confirmed it confirmed the Abraham material in a sense, because he was such a non-perfect match for that experience that he wasn't even close to that vicinity.
When you think in terms of everyone offering vibrations, and then you think about events happening, think in terms of the event being a culmination of vibrations. And so then when you say, well, I participated in it peripherally, well, you were a vibrational match to it to that degree. I participated in it fully, you were a vibrational match to that degree. The thing that makes a subject like this at first sometimes difficult to get your thoughts around is because most physical beings, without a little coaching from those who know better, want to assume that the death experience is always a bad experience. In other words, most would say, I don't want it. So when it happens to someone, it almost always feels to those who are watching that it was a bad experience, that it shouldn't have happened, that something has gone wrong. But when you think about the fact that there is not death, and that the death experience is a full connection with source energy, then you begin understanding that someone could have rendezvoused with that, who was in a place of pure positive energy, who was feeling satisfied with life experience to this degree. In other words, it just is not something that you can decide about anybody else, you see. One thing is sure, and it makes our work so very easy. Everything that happens is always the perfect vibrational match. In other words, nothing ever goes wrong. There are no near misses.
Boy, let me re-spell that out to myself and maybe to some folks there too, because that was very powerful. So not only the folks that were a perfect match to passing on, but also the that might not have been happy and were ready to pass on in that sense, but also the folks that were very happy and were ready to pass on. So that's just absolutely, because, you know, when I stated that my brother was not a perfect match was because he is a very enthusiastic, very, just a very proactive, pro-life, he's very vivacious. And that's, in that sense, I said that he wasn't a perfect match. And what you're saying is that by those very virtues, he could have been a perfect match.
Sometimes people will say, as we talk about someone who makes their transition in that way, and we say they were a perfect vibrational match to that experience, and they will argue and say, oh, they were full of life, they were wanting more. And we say, well, if you could get inside of the vibration, sometimes they make their transition because they are feeling satisfied with what they've lived. Sometimes they make their transition because they are crying out for connection and have found no way in their physical environment to achieve it. And that truly is the path of least resistance through which they can find this thing that they want so much. Sometimes they've come forth intending to make a very powerful statement. In other words, you cannot evaluate the quality of one's life by its length. It is satisfying to know that it's always just right. A little unsettling to physical humans, but that's because the virtual realities that most of you practice relative to the subject of death is that death is a bad thing. You give it to those you despise the most. In other words, you find those that you disagree with or those that you feel are inappropriate, and you give them the death penalty. And so then when the death penalty happens to someone you love, then you're all mixed up about what it means, you see.
Now, did we give them the death penalty, or did they choose a death penalty? Did they give themselves a death penalty?
Well,
what comes? Yeah,
every death is suicide, in the sense that every death, without exception, is that which is achieved by the individual's vibration. And that's why when we say something so powerful as somebody should do something about that, and the only person who can is you, then you begin to understand. And when you hear stories like this, there was a friend of a friend of a friend who brought this information to Jerry and Esther, that her daughter was on one of the airplanes that hit one of the towers. And this mother, who has been listening to Abraham for some time now, said, and my daughter was a perfect vibrational match to making her transition. In other words, she did not have any trouble at all understanding how it came about. And then the cab driver who had driven her to the airport that day said after the fact that she was so much brighter and so much shinier than she usually is. And the words that were coming out of her mouth that day were, I can feel I'm on the brink of something fantastic and new.
Wow.
And then there are all kinds of stories that will begin to surface. And we encourage all of you, as you listen, don't try too hard to listen to the stories who have been dissected and translated through someone else's intentions, because there are a lot of people that have already made up their mind how they want you to feel about certain things, and they will slant things in that way. But if you have the privilege of getting up close to any of those stories, and you hear the story directly from someone who's experienced, it is our promise to you that you will always be able to find the vibrational matches. You can always find them in your own experience, and you can always find them in the experiences of others if you have had any vibrational access to their moods or attitudes. In other words, once you begin to understand law of attraction, there are no more mysteries. It takes all of the fear out of everything, because then you begin understanding all I have to do is vibrationally line up with what feels good to me, and I'm in control of my own physical experience. And if I don't, I will have the fully connecting experience of re-emerging into non-physical. In other words, you can't get it wrong.
That is awesome. You know, I want to give other folks an opportunity here, but I have something to say before
They're all right. You're evoking. Some of them would say, yes, get out of the chair. Others are saying, continue, continue, continue.